He will be going back to the El Centro sector. That is where he was chief. Now we can also tell you that the social media pages belonging to the commander-at-large social media handle have also been suspended across the board. Of course, this all comes.
Wait, did you catch that? We are looking at a massive shakeup in the federal ranks. Reports are flying that Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bovino has been stripped of his title and sent back to California, all while these scenes are unfolding in Minneapolis. This is moving fast.
Hey, Elizabeth, so we can confirm here that Commander-at-Large Gregory Bovino is no longer that Commander-at-Large. He's been relieved of command. He will no longer be in that position. He will be going back to the El Centro sector. That is where he was chief. Now we can also tell you that the social media pages belonging to the Commander-at-Large social media handle have also been suspended across the board. Of course, this all comes as Tom Homan is here in town tonight as well. And we've learned as well that all of these agents that are here working under Commander Bovino, several of them are also leaving town. Mayor Fry also confirming that after his conversation with President Trump today, that those agents would also be leaving. But there was some back and forth here that initially they were all going to be leaving. DHS kind of about-faced on that one. And now some of the agents are still staying. I've talked to several sources who were packing their bags ready to go, but then told to be on standby and stick around in Minnesota.
This is the footage everyone is talking about. You've got masked federal agents moving through the streets of Minneapolis like a tactical unit. And now the man who is leading them, Commander Gregory Bovino, is suddenly at the center of a he said, she said between the DHS and major news outlets. The Atlantic and Reuters are reporting he's out of his commander-at-large role and heading to El Centro to retire. But then you see the DHS coming out with a hard denial on social media. They're calling him a great American and saying he's still a key part of the team. But look at the street reaction. Protesters are literally surrounding hotels where they think agents are staying. It's pure chaos. Whether he's being demoted or just repositioned, the timing right after the Alex Pretty shooting is anything but a coincidence. You can feel the administration trying to pivot the optics here before things get even more out of hand.
So what are the chances right now that there will be a government shutdown?
Very high, and they've become significantly higher after the events in Minneapolis this past weekend. I mean, just take a look here. Chance of a government shutdown this Saturday. Start this Saturday. You go back to late last week, it was only 8%. But after the events, after the shooting this weekend in Minneapolis, now we're talking about nearly a 4 in 5 shot, 79% a 79% chance of a shutdown. The folks who are putting their money where their mouth is believe after the events this past weekend in Minneapolis that the Democrats will in fact stand firm and they will not allow the government to fund.
Check out these odds from CNN. This is wild. Last week, the chance of a government shutdown was sitting at a tiny 8%. Now, it's spiked to 79%. Why? Because Chuck Schumer and the Democrats are drawing a line in the sand over ICE and DHS funding. They're basically saying they'll pass every other bill to keep the lights on, except for the one that funds the border and immigration enforcement. It's a total game of high-stakes chicken. If they don't reach a deal by the January 30th deadline, we are looking at a partial shutdown that specifically targets the Department of Homeland Security. You can see the panic setting in on Capitol Hill because neither side wants to be blamed for a shutdown, but the political pressure after what happened in Minnesota is making it almost impossible for Democrats to blink first.
What do Democrats want? They want folks to fight. They want their Congress folks to fight against the President of the United States. Because just take a look here. Dems who say that congressional Dems do too little to oppose Trump. Early last year, it was 73%. Now it is 78%. They want, Democrats in the electorate want their representatives in Congress to fight against Donald Trump, and they especially want them to do it on this particular issue where we see Democrats who disapprove of Trump up to nearly a uniformity. We're talking about 19 out of 20, 95% of Democrats who...
Look at these numbers. It explains exactly why Schumer is moving the way he is. 95% of Democrats now say they disapprove of ICE. That's nearly total uniformity. When you have a base that energized and that angry, the leadership has no choice but to take the most aggressive stance possible. It's not just about the policy anymore. It's about survival in the next election. They're feeling the heat from people who say they're doing too little to oppose the current administration's tactics. This polling data is basically the blueprint for the current gridlock in the Senate. If you're wondering why the government is on the verge of a standstill, these graphics tell the whole story.
You talked about, at the end of the day, I have to look my daughters in the eye and tell them I believe I did what was right. I'm a parent, so many people watching are. But tell me about why it was so important for your daughters to see you do this, Chris.
When I look at my daughters, I want them, like every other parent, I want them to have a better life than I did. But I also want them to know that I'm leading by example. And when I want them to know that it doesn't matter what the color of your skin is, it doesn't matter where you came from. We need to treat everybody with a measure of humanity. And that's what it really means to be an American. And that's what we are. We are a nation of immigrants. And when we're treating United States citizens where they're hiding in their homes right now in Minnesota, they're afraid to go outside. We have United States citizens, because of their color of their skin, are carrying papers, their passport with them, pictures of their passport, because they're afraid of being picked up by the federal government. That is antithetical to everything our country is about, literally everything. And I want my daughters to know that I stood up and said no. It's far important to me that I said no to this than I become the Republican gubernatorial candidate, and see my name in lights with respect to that. There are some things that are far more important than just running for office.
This was a shocker. You've got a Republican candidate for governor, Chris Madel, basically walking away from his campaign on live TV. He's talking about how he has to look his daughters in the eye and stand up for humanity. When you start seeing candidates drop out of races because they're uncomfortable with their own party's federal enforcement tactics, you know the internal rift is getting deep. He's explicitly calling out the fear people are feeling in Minnesota right now, with citizens carrying passports just to walk to the store. This isn't just a Democrat versus Republican fight anymore. It's starting to fracture the GOP from the inside out in the states where this is actually happening on the ground. The January 30th deadline is closing in fast. Do you think Schumer will actually let the government shut down over DHS? Drop a comment below and let me know your take.